Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Rueda. I am a senior product manager at GitLab in the product planning group within the plan stage. My focus within the group is on the higher level planning activities and workflows within GitLab. And today I wanted to share a question with you that I got from a customer this week that I think is really top of mind for many product managers. And since I'm a product manager using GitLab, I thought it might be fun to answer the question demonstrating how I personally handle this scenario. I want to mention that if you're a GitLab user, you probably know there are different ways to do different things. So I'm really going to highlight my process, but that doesn't mean that it's the only process. Depending upon your organizational setup, your goals, the visibility that you need, the timeliness of your sprints, for example, all of this might shift, but this is something that's worked for me for the last several years and has kept my teams in a position to be able to deliver value quickly with a decent velocity and ensure some focus to the work that we're putting out in each milestone. So let me repeat the question for you so that you're aware of kind of what we're going to talk about. And so the question is, as you solidify your product roadmap, how do you map out actionable work to keep your teams focused and not get lost in all potential things that could be worked on? We've historically started too many initiatives at a given time, so focus and priority-driven work is crucial for us. So I think if you're watching this and you're a product manager or even in development, you could definitely empathize with this struggle. One of the biggest, I think, noise generators is the random ping, right? The ping in Slack, the ping on an issue, the ping where, hey, this thing is happening as it's supposed to be. And as humans, we like to help. And so a product person or an engineer might jump in on the thread and start troubleshooting live. And so for me personally, one of the things that I do to try and bring focus is I try to insulate those opportunities. So when I see something like that happening, I'll jump in and I'll say, let me take a look at this, try and replicate it, determine the relative priority to what I've already scheduled for upcoming work to this new thing, whether it's a bug or a feature request. And I will attempt to give the engineer an out and basically say, hey, I've got this, I'll look at it and I'll schedule it for the appropriate milestone. And if it's a P1 bug, for example, I'm going to interrupt the current milestone for it. But if it isn't that urgent, then we put it in terms of priority. And so that's just one small thing that I do to try and bring focus for the group. But let me show you some other things that I do. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to show you this particular epic here that we're looking at. This has been the group's focus for, since I started with this particular group over a year ago. And so what this is, the TLDR of this work is basically we're migrating the Epic experience from one framework to a new one. From the front end perspective, a customer user experience perspective, you shouldn't see anything different aside from more features and better usability. But it's a really big initiative. And so you can see this specific epic is composed of 33 sub-epics with 162 issues. And so this is something that's been, multiple quarters long, and we can start to see some of the closed stuff here. But it's very easy in an initiative like this to get overwhelmed with the amount of work that needs to be done. And so creating a game plan is really, the best way to go about that. In this case, where we're talking about a single initiative, some of the things that I did was work with my EM, my engineering manager, to say, okay, these are all the things that need to happen. Let's put them in order. Let's talk about the dependencies and the blockers. And then we kind of mapped out a very loose schedule. And from there, I started to actually schedule the work. So let me show you that. And so as the work started getting scheduled, we were adding the this is the Epic view, sorry, the Epic board view. We're adding labels to the work that we wanted to accomplish in this quarter. And so I use the now, next, future labels in a quarterly kind of process. And so this is the stuff we wanted to accomplish this quarter. And then as I'm earmarking things for future, less concrete in terms of confidence, I'm adding them to next quarter and the future quarter. Within this list, I have prioritized the work. So I've stack ranked it because we can kind of move, drag and drop. And this is, I am the audience. I've done this for my purposes so that when I come in and I plan the next milestone, we run on 30-day milestones here, I can pick from the top of the list and make sure that I'm burning down this number and so forth. So that when I get to the bottom of the list, we should have numbers that things haven't even been started or are less. The other thing that I do in this view is because we are showing a flat list of epics here, and they may be related to a single initiative. I use the color coding. So you'll see everything that's green here is related to that main epic I showed you, as well as I like to use prefixes. So I'll prefix the work with work items so that I know it's all related to the same thing. And then I have here like color differentiation for a different initiative. And that just helps me with planning. Another thing that I wanted to show at the point where I'm kind of planning the next milestone plus a couple more out is the epic roadmap. So when I'm on the roadmap, I've narrowed down what I'm looking at by certain criteria. In this case, I'm just looking at what has the now label. When am I working on this quarter? My group. And then I also just want to see what do I have planned for the current milestone, because my job to be done is I'm looking at this is, okay, how are we executing against our delivery plan? And what do I expect is going to make it this milestone, and what might push, so that I'm thinking about, okay, well, which projects are not going to land in the timing that I expected. And so when we're looking at this big green one here is that main piece of work. And then there are several, if we expand, there are several, and there are some things they're not matching my labels completely, but there are several kind of sub epics here, and I can look at how each of those are trending. When I start to look at these other epics that are like, oh, wait, it's January 19 right now, and these are showing me that they're going to land February 9. Is that true? 75% sounds good, but 33 doesn't. So I will, as I'm planning, I'll look into this and I'll say, okay, what's going on here? And I'll see that, oh, okay, these are, there are just 3 issues. One's closed. That's why it's 33%. And the other 2 are scheduled for this existing milestone. I'll notice at a glance that there's an issue that's blocked, and it's because it's blocked on the back end. But we made a decision to put them both in the same milestone because they're staggering work, and we think that we might be able to ship them. So that 33% doesn't scare me anymore because now I know what it is. And I should just mention that I have my settings set to use issue count rather than weight, because some of my things haven't been weighed yet for the current, some of my items haven't been weighed for the current milestone because it's early in the milestone. And once I feel comfortable that I have actual weight, I would switch this over to see, okay, how are we doing once that weight is added to the issues. So I'm using this to also determine kind of like, what am I going to plan next? And then kind of coming to, oh, and one other thing before I move off of this is the date philosophy. So currently, you'll see that these things are due, like these 3, for example, due February 9th. That's because when you're looking at an epic, I typically will use, I thought I had that open still. So I typically will use inherited, which is the default date on an epic. And inherited is really a reverse inheritance where the parent epic inherits the start and end date of the child record's associated milestone. So you'll see that the last milestone, it started 16/8, right? So 16/8 started in December, and the last milestone, which is 16/9 in this case, will end February 9. And so it's inherited its dates from that child work. I like that for my view because it just gives me a picture of reality, and I don't always know when I'm going to earmark things. But you could certainly use fixed dates on epics, and you could say, okay, well, I want these three things targeted for Q1. And then you could use the visualization against the delivery timeline to see if you're meeting those dates. So that's a piece of functionality that exists that I'm not specifically using, the fixed dates against the delivery dates, but something that might be helpful for you as you're planning and determining what's next and what your team should focus on. So once you've determined what you're working on, I think that one tip that I would really highlight is the idea of um, bringing an understanding of what those priorities are to the team. So you've already, insulated and only prioritized the work or scheduled the work that is important to you. But, if you've scheduled 10 things, you might want to say, these are the top 3 things that we must deliver, and the rest is just, nice to have. So there's definitely, like I said, different ways to do things. I'm going to show you what I do, and then I'll also talk through some additional things that you could potentially do. So the first thing is, for every release, we create a release planning issue. And that just includes like quick reference, a link to the boards, and then I like to include priorities. And so I've done this in different ways in the past. When we're working on a few different initiatives, I will include a why section. Why are we working on this thing, and link to the problem that we're trying to solve, or the use cases that we're trying to improve. But because for the last, I don't know, 6 months, year, we've been working on the same project, I don't have to explain the why anymore. That would just be repetitive. And so what I found, and I hope is useful for my engineering team, is I've given them a list of what's left in this project, because we're coming to the end of it. And so this is what's left. I put it in relative priority. I've indicated, for whatever reason, which things should come first. And I'm linking to the parent epic so that they could see all the implementation details. And then I'm providing a status. So month over month, as we are building, they can see these things updating in real time, so that they could see the progress, which I think is very nice. And so if somebody is choosing work or some work to pick up as they finish something, they could easily come here and see, oh, okay, this one's blocked, I'm not even going to touch that one. And this one's the next scheduled one, so they could pick that up, for example. But the release planning issue gives more information than just what the priorities are. We like to make sure that every milestone, we are balancing features with other really important work, like bugs and maintenance, usability issues, security issues. And so I'm always trying to include those in the milestones. And then the team can link to these to see, okay, well, what are the bugs for this month? If they're in the middle of a feature and they want to take a little respite from that, they could click on here and pick up a bug, for example. And so the idea here is, absent this process, they might go out to the backlog and just start randomly choosing things, but I curated bugs for them to choose. And so it brings, again, some focus and kind of walls around the intention of what we hope to work on in the milestone. So something else that I want to show is another tool I use to demonstrate priority to my team is in the milestone issue board here, which I use. I'm in several times a day. This is a board which is made up of lists by milestone. So this is the current milestone we are in here at GitLab. It's 16.9. The next is 16.10, 16.11, 17. And I'm always curating these lists as things change. I don't touch a list that's in progress. So we are currently in 16.9. So this was kind of locked down and agreed upon with engineering prior to the start of the milestone. But as new things develop, as work looks like it might get blocked or might push, I'm constantly updating the next couple of milestones. And I use a stack ordering here. So if you're in the list, you could drag and drop things around. So when engineers come into this list, they can confidently know that, okay, well, the number one priority in 16.9 in this milestone is this first card, this particular work item. And then this is the next in priority. This is the next. We signal additional priority, if you will, using this label called deliverables. In my group, every group uses the deliverable label a little bit different, but in my group, we try to plan ambitiously. We know that 100% of what we deliver, or I'm sorry, what I schedule for the milestone is not going to be delivered. And so the things that must be delivered, that we just must sign up to say we're committed to do this, are marked with the deliverable label. And then we measure our say-do ratio against that. There are a number of issues in here that would be considered deliverables, but aren't, because they are likely to span multiple milestones. And I don't want to affect our commitments negatively when we know something just can't be delivered in a single milestone. For example, if we're working on front end while back end is still working, we might know that front end can't ship until a subsequent version, but we want to get a jump on it. So we stack rank here. We also use the deliverable label. When we get to the bottom of the list, we should all agree that these are the least important, if you will, issues of the milestone. And what I do is, as I see the milestone going on, if it's very clear that I've overscheduled, I will pull out a couple of the bottom items and put them in the top of the next milestone, just to make breathing room and reduce the stress. If, for example, we don't have enough, if it's 2 weeks left of the milestone and all of the cards are grabbed, I'll take the first thing from the next milestone and I'll add it to the bottom, because this is the next priority in line, and I'll add it to the bottom. So this is how I am kind of indicating priority. Another way that you could do this would be with priority labels, right? Using scoped labels to indicate priority. The nice thing about using priority labels for indicating priority would be that you could filter by them. You can create lists by them. And I'll show you kind of an example. Here we have a priority label of 4, but this is a priority in terms of a bug priority. We don't, in my group, I do not apply priority labels for feature work. But other groups here at GitLab do. So you can create, a 1 to 3 system or a 1 to 5 system, or you can create, a priority system. If you're putting 20 issues in, you can have a 1 to 20. What I like about that is, like I said, you can create lists. When you are using something like a workflow board, you could filter down to just show me where all of my P1s. If you're on an issues list, you could filter by the priorities as well. In this case, I'm showing all of the issues scheduled for my group for the current milestone, and the health status is not on track. So I don't know, because of this view, I don't know if any of my priority work is not on track, although I could sort by deliverable. Another thing you could do is you can create or set the priority of a label itself. So by creating labels and moving them to this prioritize section here, it creates a relative priority. And then when you are sorting or ordering the list of issues, it will respect that order. So for example, if I had set some priority labels and I sorted here by label priority or by just priority, but I think just priority also takes into consideration milestone. But by label priority, if my priority one was the first thing in my priority order, those issues would display first. So that is an added benefit of using labels for priority. I don't use this workflow in this way. I'm never going to the issues list to take a look at things. I'm always using my milestone board, to be honest. And so I find, that's not the one. I think I clicked off of it. I find the milestone board. I find the labels, the priority labels, more overhead than I need. And so I don't particularly use them. So just to recap, bringing focus to the work, I think is easy if you can get everybody on the same process, right? So having a board that's the milestone board, and it could be a milestone board like this, or it could be a workflow board, and just ensure that you're not applying the workflow labels to anything outside of the milestone. Or actually you could also filter by milestone as well, so that they're working in that board. I think that that's really the key to bringing focus to what you want your team to work on. And then to kind of tie it all back together, as work is progressing, you're watching that delivery plan execute against the dates that you sent here, kind of at that roadmap level. So hopefully that brings a little help to your workflows. And I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, I'm going to put in the description of this video my GitLab handle. So feel free to mention me on any issue or epic. And do let me know if you have ideas for improving focus and efficiency with execution in your shops. I would love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day.